All right. Welcome back to the Yay for Business podcast. It's me, Courtney Shaw. And in today's episode, I have a very special guest, my only second guest ever for the podcast. And the reason why I'm so excited for this episode is because we are both copywriting experts. And so we're going to be able to get in on this topic. I feel like so many of you are hungry for, maybe a little scared of, maybe have a lot of overwhelm about. And I'm bringing Chelsea Wallace in to chat with me about launch copy and how to approach and create the copy you need for your launch. We're going to be hitting on just all kinds of different angles on that topic. Now, before we get started, I want to give you guys the traditional intro bio to Chelsea. Chelsea Wallace is the launch copy coach, a launch strategist and copywriter who has helped hundreds of online brands execute multi-5 and 6-figure marketing campaigns, grossing up to 1.5 million in revenue. So she kind of knows what she's doing. She supports online coaches, course creators, consultants, and service providers in unlearning. I love this so much. Unlearning ways of launching that have created pressure, burnout, and reinforce cycles of fear and striving. Like that is like, we're going to dive into that because that is saying so much right there. She helps them shift their personal launch patterns into creating ways of launching for themselves so they can launch their most lush, fulfilling, and profitable dream launch. So I hope like that is the best bio. That like you are a copywriter, Chelsea. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Courtney. It's my privilege to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah, that took, even for copywriters, PS, y'all, even for copywriters, we massage things over and over. So that bio is probably version 10.
And no pressure when you're a copywriter. People are
Absolutely.
like, oh, they're a copywriter. They better have a good bio, right?
Right? And I think like that's a part of my whole thing is one of the things is I try as much as possible. I use sales psychology and these principles as much as possible. And then I let it be what it is because I know I always have the option to like come back, improve it, revise it. That's a part of playing business for the long game, right?
Yes.
And that's such a huge part of like my whole
You can use a different bio every time. You don't have to like make it perfect and then wait to share it until it's Chelsea Wallace level, guys. Like people like me and Chelsea, we started somewhere. Like we were not born knowing how to do this, right?
Courtney, if I ever brought up for you my first website.
Oh my God, yes.
Jesus, help me. Poor little thing. Like I needed help. I needed a lot of help.
Yeah. And when I teach people about copy, we're going to get into all this, but like when I teach people about copy, I'm always like, I was a terrible writer, like in high school, like it just didn't click for me. And then I had a really good professor in college who just helped me figure out what makes good writing. And then I just practiced it, right? Like anything, I just practiced it.
Listen,
and
good writing is so much about practice. Like, and any writer will tell you that. Whether that's a fiction writer, a poetry writer, copywriter, like nonfiction, somebody writing their dissertation, like anybody will tell you. Practice.
Yeah. And I always tell people, I think you're going to like this. If you can have a conversation, you can write copy. Like just put it in written form instead of verbal form. Like literally speak it into a recording and then just get it transcribed. There you go.
Listen, that is one of my favorite things to do. I love having calls with clients and they're talking and I'm like, you realize you just wrote a whole dang email.
Yes.
Like,
okay. Have you ever had this experience where you're talking to a client and they're like, this is what I'm trying to say. And you're like,
and I'm like
just say that. That was beautiful. Like,
that's exactly what you need to say. That thing you're trying to say is the thing. Say it.
So that's it. That's our interview. That's what we have for you guys. Honestly, take that tip and run with it and you'll be fine. Chelsea, I want to get into how you got into this because we were talking just before this and we've been connected online for almost a year at this point, which I love, like the way that happened, of course, less Instagram, it's pros and cons, but is like you responded with a voice memo. Actually, I was just looking back in our messages. I was creeping on our own messages to one of my posts where I wrote this down because it was a graphic I posted that said, when I feel stressed about making money, I always ask myself, how can I serve? And you sent me this like beautiful voice memo about like, yes, you're like, that's what I'm all about. And I was like, okay, I love connecting with someone on this. And so over the last year or so, we've been able to get to know each other a little bit through DMs. But I just found out that you went to school in Michigan and I'm from Michigan. And we both know that Kalamazoo is a real place because you went to Kalamazoo College. Anyone, shout out to anyone from KZoo. Tell me how you got into copy, because that is not what you studied at school.
No, it's not. I studied biology and adored biology, adored learning biology, like being in that field. But your girl didn't want to teach. She didn't want to do research. She didn't want to be a doctor. So just like, okay, what else am I going to do? I'm not going to work in a lab. I'm not going to work in a classroom. I'm not going to work in a hospital. So that kind of X's most of the biology career.
Like the list of things to do with biology degree is like, no. That was French exactly. Too. I have a French degree and it was like, I don't want to teach. I don't want to get a PhD. I don't want to do any of those things. I don't want to be a translator. So I was like, oh, I guess I got to figure something else out.
Exactly. So I'm Jamaican, living and working in Jamaica, born and raised. So I went abroad to Kalamazoo College for school and then always knew I wanted to come home. Thought I was going to come home and do something in biology because that's what I was doing. But by the time I got to my fourth year, I was like, okay, this isn't working. I don't really want to do this. What do I actually want to do? Long story short, came home, sat on my parents' couch for like 6 months.
So relatable. Yes.
Reading blog posts and tweets and podcasts and YouTube videos all around like remote working and making money online. What is this thing? Yeah. I'm like, oh, I could do it from my couch? Tell me more.
From my parents' couch?
Exactly. My parents' couch, not mine.
I love it.
So basically kind of really just dove in deep into that world and kind of got my first coach. That starting, when you're figuring yourself out, you have no idea what you're really doing, but you try, you work, right?
Yeah.
Got my second coach, who was a Black woman from South Africa who lived in the United States and moved back to South Africa, courtesy of the revenue from her online business, retired her husband, did all these amazing things. Nice. So I'm like, you look like me, you're international like me.
Yeah.
And you know how to like do this thing. I want to learn from you. She was a copywriter.
I love it. Oh my God. Because even just the fact that she moved to the States and then went back is like, I think this happens so much when we find our first, like our person, is we see ourselves in their journey and in them. And like, I didn't even realize this until you said that, but something really similar happened to me. And that's why I became a copywriter. So it's amazing how that happens. Like you never know whose life you're changing just by showing up.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Listen, and I know we say that lightly because everybody says that, but really, you just do not know. Like I have so many people and know of so many people who literally just follow people silently online and show up for them silently, right? And you wouldn't know you were having that impact.
They're not your biggest engaged followers. They're like usually,
No, they're the stalkers. And then they're the ones who will go away and implement what you said and come back a year later and be like, listen, you changed my life. Or they'll drop like hundreds of thousands then working with you.
Yeah. And either one's fine.
That is great.
Either way, it's all good work. Yeah.
But I worked with her in her business coaching program. I started kind of doing social media copy for her, learning to write emails from her, sales pages from her. And long story short, like she taught me everything I know. And it's courtesy of her that I'm even doing this. So yeah.
What a great mentor.
Yeah, she's awesome. Amazing. I love her.
I love that. So I feel like one thing that really stands out about you, well, I think it was very well expressed in your bio, is like just you use the word synergy a lot in your branding and talking about like people showing up with their energy and the word authenticity comes to mind, though that one is like a little bit overused, but we talked about a little bit briefly in the intro how copywriting can be such a challenge for people. I think a lot of people, it's like math, people have like hangups from school, right? And they have this story in their head about like, I'm not good at it or whatever. And on top of that, writing copy for anything, copy for a launch, It is a lot. It is a lot. So before we get into some of the more tactical things and strategy, I would love you to talk a little bit to us about this approach and about what you mean when you talk about like the synergy aspect.
Yeah, sure. So synergy and energy and all these things sound like super woo. I just want to say first off, this is super practical, y'all. Like if you wake up tired, you don't have energy to do your morning. That's why we have coffee, right?
That's why God gave us coffee.
Exactly. So, or green tea, if you're that kind of person, or your chai, whatever, like whatever it is for you. But bottom line, you need energy to do life. You also need energy to do launches. You need energy to write copy. And so synergy is that moment where your energy and the action, the goal, the expectation that you are moving toward align. So often with our launches, we set these huge goals. We all want that multi-5-figure, multi-6-figure launch. That is beautiful, lovely, perfect. I'm not saying don't desire it. I'm saying, does your energy match up with all the actions and activities that you need to do to get there, right?
And then like, do you even know what the actions and activities are that you need to do to get there?
Also that.
So like, you can't answer, like people be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go for it. Right. And then I just shared on Instagram, like yesterday, this sort of like roller coaster graphic of launching.
I saw it. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And it's like, it always starts with this excitement, which is awesome. I think that's necessary. I think, I talked about this in an episode earlier this month. We talked about like launch mindset. But then the reality starts to set in of what's involved. And I love how you talked about this as practical. It's like, it sounds like it's almost like a biological assessment of like, what are the resources I have? There you go. See,
I never even thought about that
I'm
before, but it's so true.
You're happy for me. Like, this is what we do. And like, of like, what is the resource I have here?
Exactly. What's my capacity?
Yes.
Right. Exactly. So one, finding out like, what's it going to take for me to have that 5-figure, 6-figure launch, right? Because PS, it'll always take more than you think.
Always.
That's how launching is. Like, always plan to way overestimate what you need.
Yeah.
And then ensure that, and then ensure you have the energy to meet that. Now, keep in mind, you won't always have it. And I think in the last year, more than ever, we found out that energy is elusive.
Yeah.
We don't always have it. And it's affected by what's going on in the world, what's going on in our relationships, in our businesses, like everything affects your energy. So assessing what you have available to you, and then looking at your launch strategy, looking at even your messaging and saying, okay, do I have what I need to execute these actions? Do I have what I need to meet this goal, to meet this expectation? And if I
honest, like, don't just be like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Like,
no,
honestly,
like when you push, when you're not honest and you say, I can make it happen. I can make it happen. Don't worry. I can do it. You can do it, but you will violate your own boundaries trying to make it happen. This is how we create burnout.
That is a quotable right there. That like you will violate your own boundaries. Cause this is what I find with our clients is first we get them setting boundaries with their clients because they love, and I'm not judging them because I did the same thing, but they love to blame their clients for the problems. Right. And I'm not saying there's nothing there. It's usually a boundary problem. Like you need to communicate that, whatever. But then what they find is the hardest boundaries to reinforce are the ones with themselves.
Yes.
Right? Like, how dare my client send me an email all times of day? Well, why are you checking your email at all times of day?
Ding, ding, ding.
So that's what that made me think of. And in a launch, it's like the intensity, the vulnerability, the discomfort is unimaginable. Like if you haven't done it before. And like some of this, Chelsea, like I feel like some of this is like preparing in advance, like getting a realistic idea of what's involved and like working on the copy, especially copy's like 90% of your launch.
It is
working on that in advance and having the time to do it when you're not in like freak out mode, feeling the most vulnerable and scared you've ever felt in your life.
Emotional roller coaster, like doing it before that hits you. I tell my clients this all the time. They do not listen to me most of the time. And then they do it and they're like, Chelsea, I should have, we're going to make sure the next launch, we write the copy beforehand. I'm like, that's why I told you to. That's why we created a whole calendar for you so you can get it done before. Because it's a trip. A launch is a trip. And you get, listen, the way I like to think about it is in life, you are triggered by everything, right? Like everything evokes a response in you. A trigger is not necessarily a bad thing. Like somebody could surprise you and happiness is triggered. You are triggered, right? Mm-hmm. And your emotions affect your energy. A launch is tailor-made for triggers.
I like see that on a graphic already. Like, okay. I talked about this. It was this month on my launch mindset episode. Mm-hmm. And this is so good to hear. Like now there's someone else, an expert at this, reinforcing this. It's not just me guys telling you, even if you are prepared, launches are going to bring up stuff, but you might as well be prepared so that you don't have to try to write sales emails while you're freaking out that you're not good enough and you're a fraud and nobody likes you and everyone's going to ask for refunds because I don't care how confident you feel right now. Something wild happens when you switch into if you're doing a webinar, the second you switch into sales mode, something happens and you feel like 100,000 eyeballs are on you. You're naked in front of the room. Everyone's judging you.
Everything
it just triggers this animal response,
Every single thing comes up. And so knowing that that's going to happen, and planning energetically and practically for it. Like have your calendar so you can get your actions done and energetically do what you need to do and plan the activities and actions to refill yourself so you have what you need to go through the launch. Like if I know that nature always takes me from any energetic level that I'm at to a level 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, you best believe every week in my launch, I better find myself out in nature.
Yes.
Because it will shift my energy and fill me up every single time and give me what I need to keep going. So I like to think of this as you're planning practically and you're planning energetically. And your synergy, the synergy you create within your launch, this lush, fulfilling dream launch that you desire is that moment where your capacity, your energy is meeting those actions and you have what you need so you can execute gracefully. And even when the stuff comes up, you have a plan for the stuff. You're not going in and getting blindsided by all the triggers. No, a launch is trigger central. So you plan for it, right?
Yeah. We go into battle prepared, not
exactly
wearing a cute skirt.
No, listen, we're not pulling a Sailor Moon moment. Okay, for those of you who know Sailor Moon, listen, she's amazing, but we're not pulling that. Okay?
We can't get away with that.
No, the skirts and the socks and the ponytails. That's not how we walk into a launch. Okay,
no, we gotta have our armor on for sure.
We walk in like Olivia Pope or Jessica
Olivia
Pearson.
Pope, yes. Exactly.
That's how we walk in. Okay.
Yep. That prepared. Exactly. Okay. So I feel like the next most logical piece of this is sort of, okay, great. I need to prepare. Okay. But what is all this stuff I need to do? It's so overwhelming. Oh my God, copywriting. I'm not good at it. All this stuff comes up, or I'm okay at it, but I don't want to do it. Stab my eye with a rusty fork is the analogy I usually use. So what advice would you give to someone going into, whether it's their first launch or maybe second, third, fourth? Because I feel like, it doesn't really matter. The first one's the scariest, but it's always scary, right?
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone who's just overwhelmed by all of the copy and the pieces of marketing and the stuff that they have to do?
Yeah. I'm sorry to kind of tout my system here if it sounds like I'm tooting my own horn.
Oh, tout away. I want all of it.
Run the energy check is my first step, is recognize where you are, right? What kind of energy do I have right now? I'm in full on resistance. I'm I would rather kill myself than write this copy, or at the very least, just procrastinate on it. Acknowledge that. Recognize that this is where you are, okay? And how much energy do you have right now? You might have a 4. Or you might be super anxious about writing it and have anxiety up to here and have it be a 10. Know where you are energetically, because your energy is what will give you what you need to write this copy. So if you don't have it, then you need to recognize where you are, then say, okay, what can I do to shift me into a mode of productivity, to shift me into an energy that will enable me to write this? And usually I talk about energy shifting and energy refilling actions. So remember, I gave that example just now about nature for me. Nature is it for me. What's it for you? And you can have multiple it's. It might mean you say, okay, I'm going to just take a night off, burn some sage, sit in the dark, journal, meditate, take some time. And tomorrow, I know that sleep refills me. I know that sage and meditation refills me. So when I come back tomorrow, I'll be ready to write. And listen, this again, Courtney said being honest. That is so, so crucial. You have to be honest about where you are at. Because if you are not, you won't be able to move forward. You can't move toward your goals. You're going to be pushing. You're going to create trauma for yourself in your launch. Like, I know so many people who tell me they dread launching. They hate it. But in the back of their mind, they always feel like, I have to do this. You don't have to do it this way. And I also want to point out, Courtney, too, that like all the copy that you think you need, you probably don't need.
Yeah, that is not a lie.
Sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't.
Or like the things that you're like freaking out about the most are probably not as important as you think. Or you're being really like talking about energy management. You're being really inefficient about how you're doing it because, okay, I have this thought that's coming up as you're talking, and I've like never articulated this before, but I feel like there's also this spectrum of like the creative aspects of writing copy and messaging. And then there's like the more task oriented steps. Yes, and I feel like the earlier on you are in creating copy for your launch, the bigger picture it needs to be. Like you need to be just like, and you need to get yourself. And for me, again, I think everyone's different in what their it is, what you talked about. Like, is it nature? Is it this? Is it that? Sometimes it's like, don't sit at your desk when you're doing creative work. Go, I mean, I realize right now it's hard to go places, but go like sit in your bedroom, on your bed, like somewhere that's going to have your brain switch modes because I read this great book last year called When, talking about how we're good at different things at different times of the day. And for those of us who are either early birds or like normal, like regular, like not really early or late, usually we're better at creative stuff in the afternoon and task stuff in the morning. Yeah. And so that gave me so much permission to be like, oh, that's why I often get better at writing copy like later in the afternoon. It's not always the glass of wine. It's just the time of day, but sometimes my it is a glass of wine. But like in the morning.
Yes. Can I just stick a pin here? That's a t-shirt. My it is a glass of wine.
It is a glass of wine.
That is perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
So good. I just think then in terms of the spectrum here, there's even in the realm of copywriting, there's parts of writing copy that are highly creative, like especially when you're coming up with your original messaging or you're brainstorming and all of that. When you're like editing stuff and like tweaking headlines, that's less creative. Then it's more in like task management zone. And so copy needs to be broken down as well. Different parts of copy are going to require different types of energy. And this goes back to like, you got to know what the tasks are, like, and break it down more because it can be really fun at first to get into like, oh, this is the thing I'm doing. And this is how I want to say it. I'm just doing voice recordings and brainstorm and draw pictures. And it's not about like opening up a Word document and starting to type a sales page. That's that's
not where you start. That's absolutely not where you start. Like for me personally, sometimes I need to get out of my head and get out of my copy brain. So I grab a pen and paper and I start writing.
Oh, and I love writing by hand. Yeah.
My copy comes out on the page before it's ever in a Google Doc. Or it comes out in my notes app. I can't tell you how many sales pages have started in my notes app before they even see the light of a Google Doc. Okay. Yeah.
Because you're like waiting in line at the bank. You're like,
and something hits you. Yeah. Like, I don't know if this happens to you, Courtney, but like oftentimes it's like when I'm going to sleep and I'm like, are you kidding me? Why am I having core promise copy pop into my head right before I go to bed? What is this?
Like, I have to keep this. It's gold. Like, I have to write it
down. Because it's so good. And then you have to wake up to write it. For me, I know, and I actually started writing down the other day, like, what are the things that you kind of said, like, that shift your brain, that trick your brain, that put you in a space that it shifts you out of a certain place into a certain place, or out of a certain task into another kind of task, right? So for me personally, I write copy best in the morning. I have to. I can't do it in the afternoon. My brain is like, no, we're not. So I know that if I have a sales page that I need, I'm going to start maybe like 2 weeks earlier. And I say, give yourself as much time as you need.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want to be writing a sales page a couple days before your launch.
Oh my God. Like the panic you just put into my body when you said,
right? Like your everything just starts to, your shoulders start to creep up to your ears.
We with our clients, we treat their very specific method we teach, but like we treat their webinar as their sales page, and like we work with them on it for 2 months.
Yes, exactly. Listen, these things I tell people, no joke. 8 to 12 weeks is what I tell my clients all the time. Yeah. And I'm like, those 4 weeks are your fun. If you are a creative, those 4 weeks are like a party, because that's the strategy, the planning, the messaging. It's all the creative stuff.
Yeah.
Then you have 8 weeks to implement. Yeah. Right. And that's when you do the writing. That's when you start to outline things, right? Because I always start with an outline.
Google Doc. Yeah.
In a Google Doc, in something else, right? Yeah. Whatever it is for you.
Right.
I start with an outline. I start to think about, okay, what would be nice to say? Like, what would people want to hear? What do they need to know before they make this buying decision, or in order to make this buying decision, right? Whether that's a yes or a no. That's the other thing. P.S. Stick up in. Copywriters are not here to convince you of anything. So you, as a non-copywriter, can take the pressure off yourself. You're not trying to convince anybody.
Yeah.
You're trying to help them make it a yes or a no of your program. Okay.
You're just showing what's there.
Exactly.
And sharing like who it's for and why it exists and who it's a good fit for, and giving them a reason to be like, yeah, let's do it now. Like that's
exactly.
It's just like putting it on a platter. It's the difference between like, eating off of a paper plate and having like a nice, it's just like the presentation.
Exactly. And listen, I know when we put it that way, it sounds like we're downplaying it, but think about it. If you walk into like a restaurant and they throw all the stuff on the plate, like that's not,
you don't want to pay as much.
That's not, exactly. You don't want to experience that. You are creating an experience with your copy, right? So think about the ways that your work shifts for you. Like, especially think about how your energy shifts throughout the day. Think about where your brain is at morning, afternoon, evening, where your brain is at after certain events, and pinpoint, okay, I think let me test out this activity right before I write some copy, or let me test out writing copy in this place and see what comes up for you. And a part of this is learning your own work patterns as well, right? And we're talking here, I want to point out that the way that we're talking about this right now is iteration. It's testing. It's figuring it out. Like if this is your first launch, you're not going to have it all together.
No, that would be shocking and
have fun.
Unusual.
That would be shockingly unusual, unless you have another business and you were like a veteran in that business.
Who are you?
Like, where did you come from? You've been a business person before, right? You hired somebody. Something is happening here. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, enjoy the process, because there is so much to be enjoyed about it. Launching can be such a roller coaster, but it can also instill within us such deep gratitude and presence. And I think we get to have that. Like, we get to tap into that. It's the opposite.
Reframe that. I feel like people need to write that down, to just reframe the way you think about a launch, going into it with gratitude and presence of like, I get to have this experience. I get to do this. Like, really,
not I have to, I get to.
Yeah. And that really takes me into my next question, which I really want to talk about launch strategy, because this is a piece like, well, both of us are copywriters. We both also do a lot with strategy, which it goes hand in hand. And I think it's a very natural progression I don't know about you, but for me as a copywriter, I kept working with clients and they would bring me things and I'm like, but no, the strategy is bad. Yes. Like, but I wasn't hired for that. So I just had to do my job.
I had to, That's when I started to make the pivot too. I was like, you need some strategic help here.
Like, this sales page is not the magic pill, my friend.
No. So, and funnily enough, and we started saying this, and I just want to say this before we talk about launch strategy.
Yeah.
We started to talk about this before when I mentioned that all the copy you think you need sometimes is not the copy you think you need. And the copy that you're placing so much importance on might not be the copy that you need to focus all your energy on. Like what Courtney said, her clients, they're writing webinars that are their sales pages. You don't have to have a sales page.
I know. Listen up. Because like you just heard I have the literal goosebumps right now. 2 copywriting sales page rating experts are telling you do not have to have a sales page.
Yes, you don't. Okay.
You do
I know.
It's, you know what a sales page is? It can be really effective, obviously. But like, it's one type of vehicle to do a job that other vehicles can do. It's more about what is going into that sales page can go into something else and have the same effect. I feel like the sales page becomes similar for course launchers. What a website becomes for service providers is like this shiny thing they think they have to have that allows them to distract themselves from the real work.
Right.
And then they get to keep postponing their launch because, but I have to write my sales page.
I don't have my sales page yet. I haven't gotten my sales page designed. It's not all connected. It's not connected to my calendar yet. Like, listen, all you need is a sales conversation. A sales page does not have to facilitate that. There are other vehicles. I love what you just said, Courtney. You need to make like a whole Instagram post and email and like a whole thing on what you just said.
All right, on
the sales page is just one vehicle to do a job that multiple other vehicles can do. Okay. Yeah. So understanding too that all the things that you think your launch needs to be doesn't have to be those things. All the copy you think you need, you probably don't need. Because also I want to say, if you don't have a very engaged email list, why are you writing all those sales emails?
Yeah, they don't know who you are and they haven't heard from you in 6 months.
You're not going to open them.
I don't remember. You've changed businesses by then. Exactly. You know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Listen, just know, okay? Don't waste your energy on that. Go where your people are and talk to your people. Can we just make it simple? Copy simplicity. Go where your people are and talk to your people there.
Yes. Okay? Stop hiding. Yeah. Totally.
All right, let's talk about launch strategy.
Yeah, let's get into the strategy. So I love this. What we talked about earlier is like, I can't wait to hear what you have to say, because I feel like there's on this one side is like everybody is different and everybody works better with different launch strategies. On the other side, people tend to get really overwhelmed with the strategies. And what I find is my clients, like before they come to work with us, they ping back and forth between all the different strategies because they're always convinced if they do a new strategy, they're going to get a better result. But they're not really measuring anything anyway. And so so we teach launches in a very specific way just to like reduce the decision-making for them. But like, let's really talk about this. Like, how do we come up with a launch strategy? Like, what is the approach? How do you approach this with people? How do you teach them to figure out what launch strategy to use? Like, what do they even need to have? And like, what is not necessary? I know that's a lot in one question, but we can break it down.
A massive question.
Yeah.
It's all good though. I think one of the things that I always say is, what do your people need? I always start there. I'm like, do they need an experience? Do they need more to understand your expertise? Do they need to understand, what results you've created in the past? Like, where are they and what do they need? Where are they when they meet you? I think one of the things that we actually don't really recognize as much is, or people are in a specific place when they happen upon or Instagram post or podcast or email. What is that place? And what do they need from you in order to say, oh, she's the person, or he's the person, or they're the person who's going to help me get this transformation that I desire, right? So depending on what they need, that's going to dictate to you what strategy you want to use. If they really need to see your expertise shine, then webinars are your thing, babe. Masterclasses are it for you, right? If they want a little bit of your expertise and they want a quick win at the same time, like it's not just they want to learn from you. They want to actually see that you can help them. You might want to do more of a workshop where you have a bit of time to have them do like a little bit of work where they can get a quick win from you and learn from you at the same time. Right? And then they'll be like, oh, they're it for me.
I get it. Yeah.
Right? And that might also, again, depending on what your people need, they might need more of an experience like that. In that case, I would recommend more of a challenge for you, right? Like a longer period of time where you can create this little incubator, this little house, if you will, that you're all living in and experiencing one another and figuring stuff out together. And that taste is enough for them to know, oh yeah, they are it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I always start with, what do your people need from you? And often when clients come to me with like no strategy at all, I always recommend the next thing be, once you establish and know what your people need from you, is where are they? Because if they are, where are they like physically, like what platform and what space virtually, as well as where are they in their lives? Yeah. Because if they're like not business owners, if they're in a 9-to-5, as a matter of fact, and they have kids and a husband and they get home and it's like crazy busy town, then they're probably not going to have, one of the biggest objections that you're going to have to overcome is, how am I going to spend 5 whole days with you, an hour a day, a part of this challenge? Like, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah. No, and I this is so interesting because as you're saying each of these questions and these like sort of examples, I'm like, oh yeah, like I can see that playing out in our own sales funnel. Like, we have, and a little different because we have like a high ticket group coaching program, but we have a training that they watch. But some people, because we target people who are really busy with client work, they're so busy that we really give them a high touch experience of like pinging them and being like, you can watch it on 2x speed, you can do this, but like supporting them through like, the fact that you're so busy is why you need to carve out some time for yourself for this, because you're not making time to work on your business and but they're so stuck in that loop. So it's really interesting. And then the example you gave about giving a quick win, I immediately thought, it was about a month ago, we launched this client capacity calculator. And it's something we have inside of our program that we decided to give away for free. And 70% of our applicants, I kid you not, in the last month have gotten that. And it actually might be higher. It's probably more like 80 or 90% at this point, because it launched after the month started, saw that capacity calculator, because seeing that and going through it and being like, this is what's going on.
You want, people. That's the response you want.
Okay, I need to go to her program now. So exactly. I could talk about it all day, but sometimes people need that bite-sized quick win experience. And sometimes I call it like an irresistible opt-in, is like something that's just like that little nugget that's like gonna flash their eyes open.
Right.
So I thought that was a really good
point. I've spoken to and been exposed to people with like $27, $37 offers that lead into 2K, 5K, 10K high ticket programs, right? And that's their system. That's their funnel, right? Yeah. People go from a $27 sale to a 10K sale.
Totally.
And you will hear a lot of like funnel and sales experts saying that you kind of have to give people steps. No. You don't give people steps. You give people what they need to make a buying decision, people. That's what you need to do. So
those people need better copywriters.
That's dang right. Yes, they do. So like really, really answering those 2 questions, like what do they need from you in order to make a buying decision with you, right? And then also, where are they? Where are they in their lives? And where are they physically? Like and when I say physically, I mean like virtually. On what platform are they? Because you go where they are.
Online.
Right, exactly. In your strategy, in your launch strategy, you go wherever they are and you make that your primary focus and you give them whatever they need.
And you do not have to be everywhere and do everything. No, you just need to laser in on the 20% that's going to give 80% of the results.
Listen,
that'll protect your energy.
High 6-figure launches just on Instagram stories alone.
Love it.
Like you don't have to be in all the places. Go where your people are and give them what they need. That's it. Those are the 2 simple rules of my strategy. I know, like, we could be super complicated about this, right? We could go through all the things.
Oh, we could get complicated.
We could, right? But I want to make this super simple for you because so many of you are probably in a position where you've never even considered your energy before. And you're listening to this episode and realizing, crap, I've been doing way, way more than my actual energy capacity.
And you don't have to do a different strategy every time you launch.
You don't. Listen, friends, can we just talk about data for a second?
Can we talk about data for a few seconds? Please.
Please, for everything that is good and lovely and beautiful, pull the data from your launch.
Yeah.
Please. Know where your people are listening to you most. Know where your sales are coming from. And know whether this strategy is netting you and setting you up for where you want to go. If you pull your data, you will have everything you need to make a decision around whether this strategy is what you need to keep doing.
And don't just specifically what needs to be tweaked, not just like that didn't work. It's like, that messaging didn't work, but the strategy did. Or like that one, like everything worked except this landing page.
Right.
It's not like
we had a really low opt-in rate here, but once they got in, everybody said yes.
Or like, forgot to send emails reminding people to come to the webinar. That's why no one showed up. Like,
exactly.
It's not like the webinar didn't work.
That's a bit of a problem.
Yeah,
that's why you need Courtney and I.
Affect your numbers a little bit. So, I had to give a plug because thank you for leading this in. Literally next week's episode is about analyzing your launch.
There we go.
So I'll talk about that more next week, but I love you coming in because you've got that scientist brain as well of like, we need to look at the evidence. And I always talk about it as like data over drama. The drama is, we just had a client this week who we do post-launch calls with all of our clients. And she had this story around like that her launch didn't go well. And so we're like, okay, upload your KPI chart. Let's look at them. Her numbers, every single one of her numbers was blown out from like what we hoped for. It was amazing. We're just like, you just need more traffic. That's it. Like,
friend, can I tell you, half of launch problems can be solved with more traffic.
Exactly.
Yes. Like once you launch and you see sales, chances are one of your biggest problems is you need more traffic. Like,
but we'll have a story about, oh my God, it's the messaging. I need to niche down more. I need to, it's like, no, the data is not saying that. Right. Like what you found is that you found like 3 core objections people have. Okay. We need to address those objections.
Address those.
In your copy, in your marketing and everything. But like, you don't have to change your whole niche because you got 3 objections.
Right.
Everyone's going to have objections. There's nothing, no way out of that. Yeah.
There are always reasons not to purchase things. You just address them. And the people who that hits home for, they say yes, right? Like, what is the data telling you? You're not going to know unless you pull it, right? So like, listen to this episode that Courtney's going to share with you soon. Go to my IGTV, watch my stories around like launch debriefs and running the numbers, because that is what is going to give you what you need in order to decide on your strategy.
And here's what I say in that episode too, is like, if that's scary to you, if like if you're a numbers phobe, like you're like, I'm not good at that. You need this even more because you're driving all of and this is what happens here. I'm going to go on a little rant here.
Okay? Yeah, go ahead.
But what happens with folks like that is they start thinking their fear is their intuition. And so they start telling themselves a story about like things that didn't work and like, I have to do this, I have to do that. That's what my intuition is saying. Like, no, that's your fear and discomfort talking. Like intuition is never going to feel like that. It's never going to feel like, oh, I sucked and everything. I'm a fraud. And like, that didn't work. And like, it's not that. So that's why we do these debriefs with our clients. Cause we're like not even half the time, 99% of the time, like, your numbers are great. We need more traffic.
Literally. And usually if you have the support of a team and a launch strategist, they will go through your numbers. And unless you like didn't know your ideal client or something, like chances are what you need is more traffic. No, we're not wholesale prescribing that for you, right? But we're saying it can be simpler than you think. Yeah. And the data is what will let you know where to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Totally. And you will waste your energy and your time hopping around different strategies, not moving towards your goals because you are not pulling the data.
Absolutely. I'm glad we had that chat about data. It's very important. Good talk. We should just do a full episode about
we should do a whole other episode about
Chelsea
data.
And Courtney talk about data. Be a whole podcast. There we go.
Sorry, that just got real exciting, friend. A whole podcast on data.
That was awesome. I was like, I love it. It's the excitement. So I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about, I'm going to get a little bit more specific into the copy.
Yeah, sure.
And talk about like, okay, so let's say people have all these pieces that they know they need to create. Like, okay, I need to create some social media, or I need to create some ads, or I need to create some sales emails, or, webinars, whatever. And they go to figure out like, oh, so-and-so has a template for that. Right. I know you have some thoughts on templates. I would love to hear, because I think this is a really important conversation that has some nuance in it. I don't really think people are aware of. So how do you feel about copywriting templates? So good. I can tell.
And listen, I always like to make things simple. I like to make things easier. I love rest. And so I'm not trying to strive and work hard all
Work harder than you need to.
No,
and
not at all. Right. So in that sense, templates are great. Here's the problem though. It's super easy to pull somebody's template and just be like, plug it into my business and expect this to work. And you don't have the same audience. You're not selling an offer that solves a similar problem. you have not been at the same level of business. You don't have the same case studies. The conditions
you're
of your
in a
business,
different industry
you're
altogether.
like completely different place.
Yeah.
So one, it's really difficult to expect one kind of template to work for everybody.
Yeah.
Two, the way that templates are typically given is more of a plug and play, fill in the blanks kind of vibe, and not teaching you the principles behind why this template works. Because here's the thing. If you understand the principles, you can do this for yourself anytime.
Yeah.
Right? Or you can take the template and tweak it.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't have to start from scratch. I'm all for not starting from scratch, but you have to understand the foundation, like Courtney said.
You don't have to be like beholden to the template because you understand how it works and why it's there and what it's doing. Yeah.
Exactly. And that will enable you to, even if it's a different niche, right? Yeah. Completely different conditions in their business than yours. If you understand the principles of that template and why it works, what it's there for, then you can tweak it to your business appropriately. Yeah. If you don't understand, if the template didn't tell you like why this is here, what's it doing, what's the purpose, right? Why we use this phrase here, why we say this here. Like if the template's not explaining those things to you, then it's not going to serve you because you're not going to know how to tweak it.
So bland.
Like it's going to sound like everybody else.
Ends up just sounding, and so like I've told clients, because like we do, when we do reviews on people's like landing pages and stuff, like I'm not shy. So we have a client, she's so great, but I remember telling her, I'm like, you're being lazy. Like this is lazy copy. Yeah. And I can tell it looks like you don't give a shit with this copy. And it looks like, I just have to put a headline here. I have to put some bullet points here. And I'm like, that's what it feels like. You know?
Can I just call out for a second? If you are using the words confused, overwhelmed, stressed, like clarity, purpose, listen, you're being lazy. I will call you out.
Yeah.
You need to paint pictures with your words. That's what copywriters do. Okay. Yeah. That's what we do. We paint pictures. We immerse people in an experience. We help them to make a buying decision from that experience. That's what we do.
And that requires specificity of language.
My favorite word ever. Listen, people.
Oh my God. Okay. Our new podcast is going to be called Data and Specificity.
That sounds like such a nerdy podcast.
It's going to be so boring. But we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. This makes me go crazy.
Crazy, like, friend. Me
people
too.
Try to speak to everyone, so they don't speak to anyone. And the more specific you are, you cannot paint a picture. Okay. I always use the example of Harry Potter. Like none of us are wizards, right? Like, I don't know. I'm not a wizard. I've never met a wizard. Yet when I'm reading Harry Potter, I'm not like, oh, this is unrelatable because I'm not a wizard. I'm like, oh, I can really picture this. I feel like I'm in the story. That's the same with your copy is people are so afraid if I say this example, people who didn't live that example aren't going to, I'm like, no, they're going to picture that example and they're going to connect with it because you said it.
Exactly. And here's the thing too. If you're being a good copywriter, not like official copywriter title, but you're using copy principles well.
Yeah.
You'll pull your ideal clients' words and create the scenarios that they're already living.
Yes.
That's where you want them to be,
and,
right?
And here's the real cheat on that is like, they will feed this to you and you just have to repeat it back
all over the place. They will feed it to you everywhere. In emails, in DMs, in comments on social media.
You just gotta pay attention.
Just pay attention, friend.
And that is, you know what I always call this the copywriting badge of honor. I love when this happens. So you basically repeat their words back to them. Like, oh, are you feeling like this? And they're like, how did you get inside?
How do you know? Are you stalking me?
Because I'm a wizard.
You told me 2 weeks ago, but that's okay. Yes, I'm magic. That's what I am.
It's so good. It's so good. Let it. And that way you can be lazy. Like that's where it's easier. It's easy when they give it to you, but you can't just be like, back to your original point about templates. You can't just be like, oh, I need 3 bullet points. So let me just say three generic things. And I'm stuck. It's like, no, you got to understand. Like, I think this is where we get to you were saying like the anatomy of it and like why it's there is it's not just 3 bullet points for the sake of 3 bullet points. It's like these 3 bullet points need.
It's not because you need to break up the eye right now and like not just prevent people from seeing paragraphs. That's not why it's there.
Because people need to see a certain number of words.
Right.
Like, that doesn't matter. And so I love that. And the other example I thought of, I just wanted to mention is, speaking of quote unquote templates, is when other people will get it inspired by your copy and they basically, it's usually done in innocence. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, but I feel like a lot of
very
people,
poor taste.
They don't know what to say, but it's like, okay, but you took my copy and you do something very different and have a very different brand. And so why are you using you need to understand how I created these headlines, not that it has to be this headline.
This headline, exactly. Like you don't take out your name, don't take out my name and stick your name in it and say you have a good email subject line. Like, that's not how it works. Like I listened to someone the other day and she was talking about the fact that somebody reached out to her with a question, as people do, and I think applied to work with her team. Actually, she went and clicked on the website they provided. It was literally her website.
This happens
almost
all the time.
Word for word. I'm like,
And people act like they don't, but I think it's just like they don't, this is where the fear of writing copy and feeling like you can't do it can be like really detrimental, because that's straight up illegal,
Yeah, it is. It's plagiarism, friends. That's what it is. It's plagiarism.
It's plagiarism.
So, and like, just follow people who will tell you why the templates work the way they work.
Yeah.
Obviously, Courtney is a great person. Another great person, Laura Belgrade. She is a genius.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And her templates are boss.
Yeah. And like her writing is so enjoyable to read.
Yes.
It's just a pleasure. Like I'm friends with her on Facebook and just like reading her status updates. I'm like, this is a joy for me.
Like,
so good.
Follow people who will teach you how to write with you in mind. You can pull your own geniusness out of yourself with what they teach and with the templates that they give. It's not about replicating their style. It's about using the copy principles to create your own.
It's a level deeper. It's how did they get to that style in the first place? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Totally. Absolutely. All right. Well, this has been time is flying. This has been such a fantastic conversation. So I get so nervous doing interviews because I forget we're recording a podcast. And then I'm like, oh, let's just talk for hours. So I would love, you have this great masterclass. I love this title, the Unlaunch Masterclass. I love the tinge of just rebelliousness in your stuff. Like it really speaks to me at a deep level. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about the whole unlaunching concept and the masterclass and where they can, everyone can get information about that. Cause I feel like that's really the logical next step for everybody.
Thank you, first of all, for allowing me to share that with people.
Yeah, of course. Oh my God, of course.
And really what the Unlaunch Masterclass is undoing how we've done launching, or the first step to that. And so within this process, I kind of teach you about synergy. I teach you about what I like to call the trigger surrender cycle. Like we started talking about triggers here and how you handle those triggers. I teach that in the masterclass. But what it really comes down to is the 5 things that can make or break your launch. From what I've seen, there are 5 core things that I teach, that I talk about. And some of them are not what you expect. One of them is about money, friends, like money urgency and how quickly you need revenue in your business. That's a whole topic in and of itself, right? Yeah. So, and that affects your launch. It affects how you go into it. Like
you cannot go into a launch with desperate energy, guys. If you need money, like get a part-time job.
You need to do some money work before you do something.
Launch is not going to go well just because you need the money. The money's not just going to come because you really want it.
Yeah, no. As a matter of fact, you will repel everybody because they'll know.
Because they're going to be like, ooh,
you just want my money. Yeah. That's what you want. And even if you're serving, like, even if you want to serve, they're just going to feel like you want them.
Right. And like, even those of us, and I think my audience is like the people we attract are just so servant-hearted, sometimes to a fault, right? Mm-hmm. But like when you're like that, sometimes you can get really in that desperate place because you do overgive and undercharge and all of that, right? And then we're all human, right? Like we do live in a society that requires money to survive. Like we don't have to like it, but like it is like it's what it is. Yeah. And so you can't fuel your going back to the synergy thing. I love that you talk about that. I love how much you talk about these like deeper principles, like this, like talking about like trigger surrender cycle and what, I mean, just like, yes. Yes.
I mean, it's the things under the launch strategy and messaging, right? That really make the launch. It's the emotion, it's the energy, it's the stuff underneath.
It's the iceberg that's under the water that you can't see, but it's the majority of it, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And we talk a lot about the top of the iceberg because that's what we can see. But we don't have enough conversations about what's beneath the surface. And so that's what this class is. It's 2 hours of just breaking down these 5 things and ensuring that you have a plan moving forward on how to tackle them. Even if you've made this mistake before, even if you're in the middle of planning a launch right now and are making this mistake, even if you've realized, oh crap, this launch that just failed, this was the mistake I made. How do you move forward from that? How do you make sure that you flip the script on these 5 things and actually use them to your advantage instead of your detriment? So I can just tell you what the 5 things are because they are on the sales page. P.S. This is only $10. So like anybody.
Yeah. I feel like this is like a prerequisite before, like after this podcast episode, before you launch, you need, go because this is foundational. This is what's going to save you. It's that preventative work.
Yes.
And then like save your health, like literally save your health. I don't even mean that as like a metaphor.
literally, because I've had clients who make one of these or 2 of these 5 mistakes and get sick. Yeah. Like have to be hospitalized.
Yeah. Before. All right. Tell us the 5 things. So we can go, get your masterclass.
Hot demand, which is basically market research, but also community validation. You have to have people to launch to. People. Yeah. If you can't launch in a vacuum, you can't just make an announcement. That's not how it works. Okay.
I saw you say that about like announcing versus launching. Like it just gives you like people that exists is not. I love that
too. Like we've all done this. Okay. So we're also telling you from like personal experience.
Oh yes. Of course. Always.
Hot demand. Revenue urgency, which is what we were kind of just hinting at a while ago. Bridging the transformation gap, which is if you have a ton of engagement, but nobody buys or you have lethargic sales, there's something happening there that you didn't quite do.
Bridge the transformation sales. Gap. Great term.
Isn't it? Term. Like they just start to trickle in and everything's a payment plan and you're like,
sales.
Where are my people?
Perk up sales. Yeah.
Right. So, bridging the transformation gap. Having a strategic plan, which is what most everyone talks about, right? But like we need to tackle that, as well as your personal energy, managing your personal energy. And that's kind of the linchpin around all of these. Yeah. And personally, I believe if you get your personal energy right, even if you have a launch that you didn't meet all your goals, you still walk out of it feeling like grounded, feeling like, I know exactly where I need to be. I know exactly where I need to go. This is going to work for my good. I'm confident, like I'm good, you know? And that's what we want. I mean, if you don't make profit, you don't want to feel like a failure at the same time, right?
Exactly. You don't want it to define your emotional state just because something outside of you happened.
Exactly. Yeah. And even if you do make profit, you don't want to feel like launches are traumatizing. And so how do you work through that? These 5 things are going to help.
So good. Okay. Everyone go get this masterclass. Where can we get it? What's the link?
Oh, right. Sorry. I didn't tell you that.
I have it in front of me as well. So
it's thelaunchcopycoach.com/unlaunch, UNLAUNCH.
And we'll have that in our show notes on the blog post, everything with the episode. So you can find it there. For those of you who are like driving or whatever, you know, don't click on anything right now.
No, please don't.
Pause. And you can get that link. And Chelsea, it has been, I feel like my cheeks hurt from like smiling and laughing so much. It has been such a pleasure to be able to chat with you finally. Thanks, and friend. Then to record it as an interview that we can share with everybody else. I know that my audience is going to get so much out of this. Thank you so much for joining me.
You are so welcome. We're going to do something else together. Yeah. Like this is
something nerdy, man. Something super nerdy.
Super nerdy. Yeah. But it has been my absolute pleasure, Courtney. I have loved this conversation. Hope you all have gotten a ton from it. If you have any questions for any one of us, really, like you can always DM us too. We're happy to answer questions.
Oh yeah. Snapshot, share us on Instagram, like talk to us. We love DMs. We love chatting. Like I like to get to know people, as we've talked about in this episode. Yes. Like that's how we that's how we live. That's like our fuel. So, all right, guys, I will see you in next week's episode. Like I said, we're going to be talking about post-launch, like analytics. Don't be scared. I'm not a numbers person either. I used to hate this stuff. Full disclosure, I did not measure my first several dozen launches. And I kept changing the strategy. So like you said, Chelsea, everything we've talked about, we've done. That's why this is very cathartic for us to discuss these things. But you guys don't have to make all of the mistakes. You'll make some of them, but you don't have to make
You'll make some, but you don't have to make them all.
You'll make your own mistakes. Yeah. And so I'll chat with you guys next week. All right. Thanks for listening. Yay! Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you love today's content and are ready to finally start making a full-time income from your business this year, make sure to get on the wait list for my program, Yay for Clients, over at yayforclients.com, and you'll be notified the next time enrollment is open. Or if you're already booked with clients and you want to learn how you can turn your signature service into a signature program and add 100K of revenue to your bottom line, come apply to my group coaching program, Yay for 100K, over at CourtneyShaw.com/apply. Thanks again and have an awesome day.